Hi, this is Monica. Hey, many of you have been listening to me on my podcast and have been reading my articles and blog posts, and I've really appreciated that. But the thing that occurred to me is that many of you haven't really heard my full story. Like, what am I about? Where did I start? All of that good stuff. And I'm sure many of you have heard the pieces, like I've been on different podcasts and I've been kind of around. And I know you hear it in the podcast too. But you don't have the whole story. So I decided that I'd like to create a little series. I think I'm going to do this in 4 parts about who I am and what I stand for. And so this is the very first video for that. So I have to confess that my true heart work is Choose Bliss. It's the name of my book, and it's what I really feel called to do in the world, is to help more people feel more bliss more often. And there's a story around that, like why is that so important to me? So I wanted to start by sharing that story today. So I was born in, Columbus, Ohio, and it's in a part of town where I was the only non-white person in my school. And because of that, I was tormented and humiliated and bullied horribly. And that taught me from a very young age that I was going to be alone, people weren't going to like me, and that life was generally just going to be hard. Now, my saving grace was that my parents were insanely loving. We had a beautiful family life. And so I always had that sanctuary to go to, right? No matter what was going on in the world. And that really gave me strength and helped me to build character, right? Because I always had a safe place to go. But out there in the world, life was really tough. And as I got older, it got tougher, because the bullying turned into like horrible things. I suffered through stuff that girls should never have to suffer through. The kind of bullying that really bad boys do to girls. And so I just couldn't wait to leave home and go to college and get out of that place where I was being so badly abused in my environment. Certainly not at home, but at school. And by the people in school. And so I left and I went to college. And then it happened again. This same sort of thing. I was assaulted again. And then I got out of college and I was so excited to start my new life. I was in control now. I had a new job. I had a great new car. I had an apartment. Life was finally was getting exciting. And then I got in a horrible car accident and became a cripple. And I had been a dancer since I was 3 years old. So it's not just that I was a cripple and in pain, but I was a dancer and I had hoped to become a professional dancer. And then here suddenly, my legs were taken away from me. So it's not just that I was a cripple, but my biggest dream had been ripped out from underneath me. Finally, life did seem to get kind of better, right? I got married. I met the man of my dreams. Life was good. I thought it was all going to be better. Now there was someone to take care of me and someone that would make my heart sing always. And the thing that I realized was the thing that many of us realize, that is, someone else can't make us happy. Like, certainly a good relationship can hugely support our happiness, but it doesn't make us happy. I was still Monica in my relationship with Dave, and Monica was not happy. I was still in pain. It was still very, very difficult for me to walk. And what happened then was that I just felt like it wasn't going to get better, that there wasn't an answer. And I remember I slipped into a deep, deep depression. Nothing was making it better. Life just seemed to keep getting worse. My marriage was great, but I was still in pain, and the pain got worse because I wasn't dancing. I was gaining weight. I mean, there's all this stuff that happens when you physically can't be active. And I fell into this deep depression. And I remember one day I had been crying for about a week in bed. And I had this thought, is it worth it? And I heard my mom's voice in my head, thank God. And I heard her saying, Monica, you need to get outside and get some air. It'll make you feel better. You need to move. And I had been in bed for like a week. So I pushed the covers over my head and tried to slip out of bed so I could take my mom's advice and go for a walk. And my legs had become so weak that I fell to the ground. I couldn't even move. And I sat there on the ground, up against my bed, and just cried. And I said to God, God, I can't keep doing this. Please have mercy on me. Either take me home or teach me how to live. And I just cried. And about an hour later, the phone rang. And so I had to crawl across the floor to go get the phone. And I picked it up, and it was a girlfriend who I hadn't spoken to for over 2 years. Randomly, she's calling me, right? I always tell her now, you were that answer from God. And she wanted to know how I was doing, and she could tell I had been crying. So she came over, we hung out, and she turned me on to her coach. Not a therapist, a coach. And I think he saved my life because we started talking, and he, over the next few months, really reminded me of the power of who I was, my belief in the world, and that I could be who I wanted to be. But the thing that he reminded me was, nobody else is going to make me happy. And we hear this all the time, right? That joy or happiness or bliss is an inside job. And it sounds so quaint, right? And we all know intellectually that this should be true. But still, we want the big house, the nice marriage, the nice cars, the clothes, right? I was really good at retail therapy, but it wasn't making me happy. And so here I was now in this position where I could hear him. He was right. All of that stuff was not going to make me happy. I had to figure out how to be happy on the inside. Now, because of all of my sort of suffering as a young child and a teenager, I was a total personal growth, you might say junkie, right? I loved to read personal growth stuff. I wanted to find the answers to how I could be happy. So I had a huge amount of tools. I even had a lot of experience of how to create joy in spite of what was going on in the world around me. But I had fallen, and so I needed to be reminded. And so Ted, my coach, reminded me of the things that I had learned, the tools that I had used, and then added his own. And together, we picked me back up. And we created Monica, the happy Monica, the blissful Monica. My life has never been the same since. It doesn't mean that there haven't been challenges. David and I wanted to have children. We went through all of our fertility stuff. I had 14 miscarriages. I've had businesses fail. I've lost people that I love, right? Life happens. It continues to happen. I was recently in another car accident, and I've been in treatment for a year. Life happens. But it doesn't mean that because life happens, bliss has to disappear. And what I'm so grateful for about that time in my life where I hit rock bottom was that I met someone who could retrain me to be myself, to be the person that I was born to be. Because here's the thing. We are born as these tiny little bundles of joy, right? We're these little beings that have come into the world, and the world is this awesome place. There's so much learning to do. There's so much to experience. We're born as these little bundles of joy. And then life teaches us about fear and about what we can't do. But that bundle of joy That is your birthright. Being blissful is your birthright. And it was my birthright, and I needed to discover that. And the thing is that now, living my life, no matter what happens, now I go to 4 doctor's appointments a week, and I've been doing that for the last year. Even now, even through the pain today, I'm able to stay joyful and blissful because I have the tools. What a gift. And once you've experienced that sort of rock bottom where you're not sure if it's worth it, you never want anybody else in the world to have to experience that. And that's why I've gone onto this mission of writing my book, Choose Bliss, and getting the word out there of what's possible. To hear more, tune in next time. I'll see you then.